Let me ask you something. Do you ever send an email, you've read it over, you've checked it twice, and then you wake up at 2 a.m. in a cold sweat, absolutely convinced you missed a comma? Or how about this? You walk into a room, any room, and it's like you have a special power. Your eyes just zoom right to the one single picture frame that's maybe a millimeter crooked. If any of that sounds painfully familiar, then yeah, this is for you. See, this isn't just about being highly organized or detail-oriented. You might actually be dealing with something that Eastern philosophy calls the Rooster's disease. Now, I know that sounds strange, but stick with me. Let's dive in. So the rooster, right? It's a symbol of beauty, of precision, of being on time every single time. Think of it as the sharpest knife in the kitchen. But here's the problem. What happens when you start using that razor-sharp blade on yourself? Or even worse, on the people you love? To really get how this strength can twist into a self-destructive weakness, there's this old cautionary tale that it hits the nail on the head. So the story starts with this absolutely magnificent rooster, and he was so proud of his comb. It was vibrant, red, and flawless. Every morning he'd be out there polishing it to perfection. But then, one day, he spotted it. An imperfection. A single, tiny, almost invisible speck of dust on his otherwise perfect comb. So naturally, he frantically pecks at it to get it off. And sure, the dust is gone, but now there's a tiny little scratch in its place. And he is just horrified. A scratch on his comb? His perfection was totally ruined. While panic sets in, he tries to buff out the scratch on a rock, but in his frantic state, he just rubs way too hard. The skin gets raw, it starts to bleed, and the whole problem just got 1,000 times worse. He becomes obsessed. All night long, he's scrubbing and rubbing, trying to fix this tiny flaw, and by the time the sun came up, his attempt to restore perfection had led to total destruction. He had completely scrubbed his entire comb away. And this right here, this is the real cost. While he was trapped in this spiral, destroying himself over something microscopic, what were the other chickens doing? They were out enjoying the morning, eating the best worms, just living their lives. It's a simple story, but this is where it really starts to hit home, because we have to ask ourselves, how does this rooster show up in our own lives? You see, that rooster energy is tied to the metal element. It's like a finely honed steel blade. It's incredibly good at cutting through problems with precision. But that same cold, hard sharpness, it's just devastating when you apply it to the soft, messy world of human relationships. And this is the dangerous gap, right here, the one between our intention and how people actually feel it. We think we're just upholding high standards, but the people around us, our team, our family, they feel it as constant judgment. We think we're being helpful, but the message they actually receive is, I'm not good enough. So what does this actually look like? Well, it's reloading the dishwasher after your partner did it because it wasn't the right way. It's staying up until midnight, completely redoing an employee's work instead of actually coaching them. It's that little voice in your head that's always saying, if I don't do it myself, it's going to be a complete disaster. And this is so crucial to get. The goal that we're chasing, this idea of perfect, it's a statue. And what are statues? They're cold, they're hard, and they are not alive. Real life, real growth, real connection, all of that stuff is inherently messy. When you try to make everything perfect, you kill all the joy right along with the flaws. Realizing this doesn't mean you need some complicated 5-step plan. It just leads to a single, really powerful shift in your perspective. It's a fundamental choice. And that choice is between excellence and perfectionism. And believe me, they are not the same thing. Excellence is about striving to do your best with what you have. It allows for growth. Perfectionism is a rigid, unforgiving prison. It's a refusal to accept anything less than an impossible standard, every single second. One is a path forward, the other is just a cage. So the next time you feel that urge bubbling up, the urge to correct, to fix, to make something perfect, just stop for a second and ask yourself this one question. Do I want to live in a perfect, pristine museum where nothing can ever be touched? Or do I want to live in a warm, messy, and beautifully imperfect home?